Fable 2 is a game that's all about choices, and there are tons of them to be made. What businesses you invest in, what house you want to buy, whether you're going to have protected or unprotected sex, and all these choices have consequences, but the heart of Fable 2 is really in these sweeping moral choices that you make, and the game does a good job of not only giving you a big consequence for some of the smallest choices, but making sure you see those consequences over time. You'll start the game as an orphan in this kind of Dickens-esque little town. You'll be joined by your sister. Now, childhood doesn't last very long, but the choices you make even in this early stage of the game will ripple throughout the rest of the game as you move on. One event leads to another, and you'll find yourself becoming a hero set on a quest for revenge.
I'm sorry.
Once you're out of the pretty quick childhood phase, the game world really opens up. There's the main storyline you can follow, or there's any number of things you could do around the world.
I don't want to get married to a woman.
Again, this is where some of those minor choices come into play. You can choose to invest in a business, you can choose to buy property and rent it out, you can choose to do odd jobs like blacksmithing or cutting wood, or you can choose to help out the local villagers by performing side quests.
If you can kick those creatures out of my cave, well, I can go home.
All of these things will take up probably more of your time than the main storyline, but they actually flesh out the world in a really amazing way. The humor is great, and the fact that it's got this kind of dark edge to it really makes all the quests interesting and makes you want to see what's going to happen if you make one choice or the other.
Stop your pestering. You mind if I...
Much like Fable 1, as you make these choices, you'll either go evil or you'll go good. The consequences for these are actually pretty apparent in the world too. Villagers will swarm to you if you're good, wanting to get your autograph or marry you, or just kind of like stand around you, and you'll wind up walking around town with this gaggle of people behind you. Or if you're evil, they'll actually shun you, possibly even kick your dog, or just generally shy away from you.
Why do you take such joy in the destruction of property, hmm?
So as you're going about Albion, changing the world for either good or evil, the consequences will make themselves readily apparent. Towns will either prosper or suffer based on the actions you've taken, and the game staggers itself along in intervals of time so that you can come back 20 years later and see what's happened due to a choice you made earlier on in the game.
But to really see the impact of your actions, you need look no further than Bowerstone. It has changed much since you lived here.
Now, aside from the choices you'll be making to affect the outside world, you'll have a couple of opportunities to do some self-improvement. You'll be collecting different types of experience throughout the game, and that experience can be dumped back into 3 different categories of combat. You can choose to focus on strength, skill, which is essentially dexterity, or will, which is basically magic, or a combination of all 3. The combat is actually pretty good, so if you're strong, you'll be knocking foes back as you hit them with your axe. You'll gain more combos and different ways to swing your weapon. Dumping points into dexterity will affect your ranged attacks, making them stronger and more accurate, and you'll even get to unlock this kind of like not quite first person but zoomed in mode with your ranged weapons. Putting points into will lets you upgrade all your spells. There's a bunch of them, and they're all pretty weak at first, but dumping more and more points into them will make them stronger and more effective in the long run. The combat is actually set up in a way to allow you to easily switch between the 3 different schools of attack. You can quickly take out your bow and pick off oncoming guys, switch to your axe and hack them down once they get close enough, or launch an area effect spell to wipe out a bunch of foes. Each attack is mapped to one button on the controller, so switching is pretty easy and pretty fast, and it's actually really rewarding. So while a lot of the quests involve combat, most of my time in the game was kind of spent doing other things. Now, all this stuff is actually really fun and engaging, which is why it becomes so absorbing. You'll furnish your houses, you'll have to run back and keep wives happy when they're missing you, you have to go visit your kids, and generally spend a lot of time bouncing between these different areas of the world.
You have a strange way of showing your love.
The only downside to this is maybe it wouldn't take so much time if there were a better map system in place. While you can fast travel between towns by just clicking on the name of it from a regions list, finding things within the towns can be a real chore. The in-game map doesn't show everything, and it certainly doesn't show everything you've invested in, such as your house, business properties, or even your wife and children. Using items in the game is actually kind of a burden too. Your inventory seems to get bogged down with the more items you have, loading a little slower, and once you use an item, you're kicked back out to the main game and you have to go back into your inventory to use another item. Okay, so those problems aside, the world is actually really alive and really funny. All the people you come across have a pretty good sense of humor, it's written well, and it looks really good.
You have entered a venerable society of dark worship, with a long history of wicked deeds and opprobrious transgressions. Fridays is poker night.
The music is really well done, and it's got this whole Danny Elfman-esque vibe to it, and really fits the style of the gameplay and the charm. The voice acting in the game is also really well done, and everybody delivers these kind of black, humorous lines really well.
Oh, I think I'm going to be sick. That one was still fluttering as you swallowed it.
It's this dark humor that really sets the game apart. If not for the M rating, this game might have fallen into middling fantasy territory, but since there's this small twist to everything, it really makes the world that much more intriguing. Characters will curse at you, you'll be buying condoms to make sure that you have protected sex so you don't get STDs. Your wife will leave you, but then you could just stick an axe in the back of her head.
Don't scare your wife.
And it's these little touches to the game, these kind of more adult touches to the game, that really make playing through the game a joy.
Oh! Sorry, I've never seen anything like this before.
So there's a ton to do in Fable II, that's really the big point here. It's a rich, charming, and pretty funny world. If you can get past some of the user interface issues and the technical quirks, you'll find Fable II to be as entertaining as it is rewarding.
Some people get married, you know. But then, some people have rings.
It is now officially bedtime.